So today, Saturday, September 3rd, it's day 192, and I want to do something a little bit different. There's a military war, a political war, an economic war, a propaganda war, and I've talked about military, I've talked about propaganda, I've even talked about economics some. I haven't given as much attention to the political war, and I want to take this time to look at all the political pieces that are moving around, and it's different than the last time I did, but I just want to spend time on that. So I'm going to skip over the intelligence update about, where the fighting is and how the front line is being stretched and that kind of thing. I want to look at things like this. So here is, I'm starting with this Al Jazeera, which, believe it or not, does a really good job of curating what's going on in Ukraine. I don't trust them for other things, but they've done a pretty good job. They're not any different than what you'd see in the New York Times or in the Guardian or whatever other Western newspaper. Okay, Russia scrapped the plan to restart Nord Stream 1, deepening Europe's difficulties in securing winter fuel. So this has been in the news lately, where Nord Stream 1, they were saying they had some problems and they weren't going to necessarily be able to restart it. And the Western Europeans were saying, hey, this is energy warfare. Give us our energy, but we want to put a price cap on you because we don't want you to sell your energy. It's a little bit bizarre, but that's kind of what's been going on. Here's Radio Free Europe talking about the same thing. Russia suspends Nord Stream 1 deliveries indefinitely, raising the fears of an energy crunch. Russia is suspending the flow of gas supplies as the winters are about to start turning colder. The stoppage has fueled fears that Russia will keep the pipeline offline for a longer period of time, which would then hopefully break the will of the Western Europeans from the Russian perspective. Moscow has repeatedly denied using energy as a weapon, though they have threatened to use energy as a weapon, so the denials are kind of not really all that impressive. Okay, another article. This is also from Al Jazeera, and it's talking about the nuclear standoff. Now, Turkey has offered to intervene and to mediate. Now, Turkey did this before. Our President Erdogan has done this before with the grain embargo, or not grain embargo, grain shipments getting out of the Black Sea, brokering a peace between Russia and Ukraine, creating a sea lane for Ukrainian wheat to get out, as well as for Russian wheat to be able to be sold so that to overturn the sanctions so that they can sell their wheat, so there's not a food shortage. Russia's President Erdogan has offered to mediate in the standoff of the nuclear power plant, and with good reason, right? Turkey can play a facilitator role in Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant as they did in the grain deal, and Erdogan has even said that he wants to avoid another Chernobyl, and I get that. I mean, he's not too far from there. He'll get some of the blowback if it becomes a Chernobyl-like situation. And again, here's another. This is Reuters. The other one was Al Jazeera, and generally you should try to triangulate on the news. So that's Al Jazeera. Here's Reuters saying essentially the same thing. These guys can get along. Now, what's important is that Turkey is an honest broker between Ukraine and Putin, whereas someone like the British Prime Minister or the French president, they're not honest brokers that Russia would be able to trust. So, when Macron is saying we cannot let Russia militarily win today, we must, this is just today's article, he was just saying we cannot let them win. We must be prepared for a long war. We must not let Europe get divided. He would be in a terrible position to become an honest broker. But, honestly, I think what's going to happen here is one of the big winners here. Geopolitically, Putin's a big loser. Geopolitically, Erdogan is a big winner. He's looked as an honest broker. I think China's been a big winner. As Russia kind of contracts in international prestige, China is starting to look like the big brother. So same thing with Turkey becoming a big winner. Okay. Here's a final article. It's from DW. Actually, I have two more articles. Here's from DW. Russia and Ukraine Ukraine and Germany may actually become energy trading partners because Ukraine has nuclear power plants. Germany needs energy. Ukraine has said it plans to provide surplus energy to Germany to help it offset some of the problems that they're having with getting energy from Russia. The EU would get more energy and we would get foreign currency that we need, said the Prime Minister Schmiel. However, observers fear that Russia's capture of Zaporizhia, the largest nuclear power plant, could lead to an accident or something along those lines. So as long as, they're not blowing up the power plants, yeah, that could actually work, and it could help significantly. Okay, final article. So I've been all over the map today, and I wanted to end with this. Usually I end with RT or Pravda and like just the nonsense that they're saying. I have no more tolerance for that today. I need a break. Here is a fascinating article. It's in AtlanticCouncil.org. Russia's self-defeating invasion, why Vladimir Putin has lost Ukraine forever. And I said this about 3 weeks in, almost the same thing that this guy's saying. This is a professor, I believe, in, I'm trying to remember where. At any rate, here's what he has to say. Russia's genocidal invasion of Ukraine was meant to extinguish Ukrainian statehood and eradicate Ukrainian identity. Instead, it's turbocharging the de-Russification of the country. I didn't say that, but I said some of the other things in here early on in the war. Ukrainian support for de-Russification has been a truly nationwide phenomenon. So they weren't anti-Russia, like let's de-Russify before, but now they are. This wartime trend is rapidly reversing centuries of Russification and directly undermining Vladimir Putin's dreams of a new Russian empire. Hey, after all, Ukraine is in that land that they call Novorossiya. Recent opinion polls, and I saw these opinion polls, I talked about them about a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago tops, consistently indicate converging opinions on national identity, language, relations with Russia. Ukrainians are now most unified on the need for de-Russification. Just 2% of Ukrainians, 2%, believe Moscow's claims of genocide against the country's Russian speakers. I mean, that's a pretty small amount. Okay, 85% of Ukrainians use both Ukrainian and Russian at home. Only 13% of the Ukrainian population only speaks Russian. Okay, let's scroll down just a little bit more. Only 11% of Ukrainians now express nostalgia for the USSR. That's fascinating. Compared to approximately 2/3 of Russians who miss the USSR, and 84% who have a positive view of Stalin. I mean, it's a very different picture. Ukraine is not where the Soviet Union was, even though they were part, or where Russia is about the Soviet Union, even though they were just as much part of the Soviet Union. The number of Ukrainians who express positive views of Russians has plummeted from 47% just a few years ago, just before COVID, to 3% today. So, I mean, I guess the lesson is if you blow up our cities, we don't like you. I mean, this isn't really rocket science. I mean, no pun intended, but yeah, you get the idea. It's also striking that the vast majority of civilian victims during the first 6 months of the invasion have been same Russian-speaking Ukrainians in the south and east of the country who Putin claims to be protecting. Now, I made that point before as well. Like, the people that are faring the worst are the people that are so-called being protected, because it's not about protecting them. It's really about taking over the ground and creating a buffer between Russia and elsewhere. Okay, 89% of Ukrainians believe the Kremlin is committing genocide in Ukraine. I think that's too low of a number. 78% of Ukrainians rule out any normalization of relations with Russia for at least one generation. I told people in the first 3-4 weeks, there is generational hatred in Ukraine. It won't go back. It won't reset for at least 3 generations, and it could be longer. Ukrainian school children are no longer studying Russian language and literature. I think that's unfortunate. I think to do that is a bad misstep, but I get it. I understand why they're doing that. This is exactly what Vladimir Putin hoped to prevent, and that's what he's getting, because he terribly miscalculated. Oh, but here he is. Taras Kuzio is a professor of political science at National University of Kyiv. So I think that's exactly right. The opinion polls that I've seen recently show that Ukrainians want nothing to do with Russia. They hate Russians, and that's the way it is. Okay, so I hope going from looking at what Turkey might be doing, or what Ukraine and Germany might be doing, or all the other pictures that I've tried to triangulate on will help you give a better picture of the military war is this. But then there's the political war. Then there's the economic war and the propaganda war. And while we only looked at the political war, I hope that helps you understand the bigger picture of what's going on in Ukraine today, day 192. Thanks. I'll be back tomorrow.